Shout out to you guys for making the time to come on today. Of course, we got Trev and Emmett of The Effect. Um,
Yeah, baby.
like I was
Good.
just saying, congratulations on all the success, guys. I mean, we got the latest single, Something Wrong. You guys have been rocking it. You guys got some shows coming up with Steel Panther. So a lot of exciting
Mhm.
things, it seems like, on the table right now. How does it all feel?
Oh man, it feels great, and it's great to finally really get shows kind of booking and getting, because I know definitely after our debut show, it just really showed just how we gel as well live, not just in the studio. So,
Mhm.
seeing the reaction of the hometown, at least for me, hometown crowd of LA, the response was incredible, man. And we just got, it's that like scratching that itch. We got to keep doing it, man.
For sure.
And so we got the opportunity to open for Steel Panther, and actually we're also going to be opening and doing a show with Evan Stanley, his band Amber Wild. We're going to be doing the show in Hollywood mid-February. Um, so yeah, man, that's going to be a lot of fun too.
Nice, very cool. I mean, Emmett, sort of speaking on your perspective as the front man of this group,
Mm.
what can you say about the crowd reaction, sort of like Trev was saying, to the group so far? I mean, in the experience that you guys have.
Oh man, I mean, for us to be able to do that first show, there was a lot of magic there for us, and it was something that we could feel. The crowd was like, so happy just to be there and just to do it. There's this whole you're riding on that magic of the first show, and everybody
Right.
wants to be part of that. The people that were really into the band, so we felt like it showed a lot of what we do, but it's also like a warm up for like bigger venues and stuff because we're very active. Me and Trev, like as he's a front man too, as a guitar player, he's a mover and a shaker, and we've
Yeah.
always had connection in the studio and live. So to be able to open for a Steel Panther and Amber Wild and said, just get another shot at doing this is that's our happy place, man.
For sure. It's definitely next level. So maybe speak on how you guys sort of got together and got this going leading up to that show.
Yeah. I mean, you could say that really you can thank socials for this whole thing because it turns out
Okay.
I did a cover of what would be, I didn't know what was Trev's wedding song. And that's what got us connected and interacting on Instagram in
That was the
particular.
Peter Gabriel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. In Your Eyes. Yeah, that was a great cover, by the way. So you made that cover, and then Trev, you found the cover.
I mean, yeah, it popped up on my feed, man, and I was like, who's this guy?
Oh,
And it was
cool.
just so beautifully done. I mean, In Your Eyes, one of the greatest songs of all time. So to even put yourself out there to make a cover of a song like that, and make it your own, like M did, it was like, I mean, it just, jaw was on the floor, and my wife Madison, I mean, my phone was, speaker was on, and she's like, who's that? I'm like, I know. I was like, who is this guy? Gotta hit him up, so
Wow.
I followed him, and he followed me back, and we were just kind of loving on each other as far as just supporting each other. He was supporting my guitar videos, and every cover he put out was just incredible. So we became insta friends,
Yeah.
and then we exchanged information, and I think we were texting, and I just decided, what, I'm gonna fucking call this guy, because you know as Cassius, the last time we talked, wasn't a great band experience for me last time.
Come a long
um
way.
a long way, man. So it was one of those things where it's like, I was like literally fighting the universe, because the universe was aligning for us to be a band, and I was fighting against it. And one
Mm.
thing you learn is you can't fight against the universe, right?
You're
So
not
I
gonna
was like,
win. Yeah.
you're not going to win. So I decided, just like, I'm going to call him and just see how he is as a person. And that conversation was a 3 hour long conversation of just
Wow.
like, we instantly connected as friends. And then the idea popped because, Nick Collins and I, we got a chance to hang out early 2023 and sit down with each other, because we heard of each other. Like Lee Sklar was telling me, you got to hang out with Nick, man. You guys are going to be,
Right.
friends. You guys got to do something together. And I reached out on Instagram, same thing with Nick. Nick followed me back. It was very similar to Emmett. And then I got a chance to hang with Nick in Miami, and we became fast friends. And the same thing with M. Talked to him, fast friends, man. And Maggiora and I have been bros for like 13 years.
Okay,
So,
cool.
it's just one of those things where the stars aligned, and our first writing session was Unwanted, and Emmett and I went on FaceTime and we wrote Unwanted, the top line together. And from that moment, I was like, oh, we also not only are brothers instantly, but our writing chemistry is crazy good.
Because you can't always pick that, right? I mean, there can be somebody that you guys get along like nobody else, but maybe the chemistry isn't there musically.
That's right. Yeah, I often say that in bands, sometimes you have a personal connection, and sometimes you have a musical connection, just as you said, Cassius. So it's like sometimes you only get one or the other, and it's very rare that you actually get both. And that's what's been magic. And it's like that for, as Trev was saying, for all of us, not just like the writing team. I mean, we all write the songs technically, but in terms of, when we're just working on top line or something, but we all have a connection with each other, which is amazing. And we actually like each other's company. So
yeah. And I mean, again, that's something that sadly is quite rare in a lot of bands. And I mean, I noticed this even just watching the video that you guys just put up for Something Wrong, and even the live clip that you guys had. All smiles basically from everybody in the band throughout the whole video, the whole performance. You can tell how much fun you guys are having. I mean, maybe if you could speak to that element, but also why does that seem to be lacking so much, do you think, in different groups?
I think just off the top of my head, rock and roll in the past, I'd say the past 20 years, there's this kind of ethos of it has to be serious. Yeah. And this is not every band. Okay, this is a very general statement. I'm not I'm going to throw people unknowingly under the bus, but like if you think about when Van Halen kind of revamped rock and roll and brought it back from the clutches of disco, I think Eddie was smiling, and it was fun. Like you watch early Van Halen stuff, and it's like, oh my God, it's a party on stage. Unknowingly, Trev and myself and the guys, we have that spirit of music is fun. We're not there. It's not an industry of cool. Like how cool can I look in this particular second? It's about enjoyment. And so hopefully that translates into a show. And so that's the idea. We're in our living room. We're having a great time, and we want the audience to be part of that. It's very simple.
I kind of describe it as, the old photos from like the 1800s, man, like no one fucking smiled.
Right. You had to stay still.
It's like serious face. You're not having a good time. And I like that we show our heart. We wear our hearts on our sleeves as a band. And so, people get tweaked, man. I mean, I've been always a smiling guitar player. People get mad at me online when I post a video. Stop smiling. It's like, hey, man, I love what I do. I love playing, and Emmett loves what he does, and Nick loves what he does, and Steve loves what he does. So we first time we got together in a room and rehearsed, the chills, like the goosebumps, like we all felt this, the connection all together. And then we just knew it was like, all right, here we go, man. The roller coaster has started.
Man, that's so cool. And I mean, the fact that the first song you guys wrote together actually ended up being, one of your first releases as well. I mean, is that something that's common, or does it usually take a long time to sort of nail down a track that's sort of worth releasing, quote unquote?
I mean, I truly believe that each song that you do and that you sit down, you decide to record, you need to put your heart and your soul into knowing that's a single in any way. I mean, right. I think that people that write 30 songs and pick the best 10 or whatever, good for them. But, I like to really, just personally as a producer side of the band, but really this has also been the experience with us as a band is each song we take as like, this is going to be our single, every song. Right. So we really bring our A game to every song. And that's why this album, when we wrap the full album, and every song is it's all killer, no filler, man, and and so I mean, this band has been, every song experience has been A class, and we've been excited about every single one. But you continue that.
No, I'd be reiterating kind of what you're saying. It's like from the get-go, it was never an idea of, let's see what we can do. But when there's just so much musicality going on, that's part of what was so interesting to me when I first got to see what Trev was doing. When I would see his videos on Instagram, I was like, the musicality of this dude and his originality. That's the thing that I want to talk about a little bit, because Trev he has a sound as a guitar player, which is another, I think, a very difficult thing to do. You can be a killer technician, you can play all the scales, you can play all the notes, but I've heard from the beginning that Trev had a voice as a guitar player, as a riff writer, as a rhythm guitar player, also as a soloist. So with that kind of energy going into a writing session, having an identity and wanting something, having the desire to create something exciting, that was there from Unwanted. And like you say, it's maybe not common, but it was just in the air, and we just had to grab it.
Yeah, man, that's so cool though that it was that quick. And again, like it sounds like just serendipity that you guys sort of met in this sort of unconventional way, and then ended up sort of putting something together and being, located in, vicinity of each other to do so. The whole thing is pretty fascinating.
And I just had to say, Em, I love you, bro. Thank you for that. That's so sweet, man. But I can't say this. I can't like not say the same about Em too. Is it was really funny when we did our first vocal session here at the studio at the house. Just within what I don't know, like maybe a couple takes, I looked at him and I said, "Oh, thank God, you're real, man. You're real." Because a lot of people can post these videos online, and you can tweak it and make yourself sound like $1,000,000, but Emmett's the real deal, man. I mean, that's how he sounds. Like when you hear the record, I mean, it's how that's Emmett, So, what I love about Em too is he has his own voice. He's got the right amount of his influences in every way, but you still can't say, oh, he sounds like that guy. Oh, he sounds like Emmett's Emmett, and I think that's just what's so cool. And I feel the same, and we both feel the same about Nick and Steve. Nick has such a distinct style as a drummer, and Steve is unbelievable with sounds and parts. That he's a Pop-Tart, man, on the keys. So it's we all get to laugh and we get to experience the song as we write together, but as we build the track, we get to also listen as a listener to your song, which is so important.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of the level of musicianship in this band, touching on Nick and Steve, like knowing what they can do as musicians in terms of how well-rounded they are. Like, Steve is an unbelievably accomplished like jazz pianist as well. So it's like if we were to do like a prog jazz record, these guys could play that stuff. Obviously, with that kind of, I always feel like, you practice all those scales or all those things to be able to do one thing or play one simple rhythm well, with a lot of power. And that's what you get. Like, Nick has this unbelievable, like heavy-handed, kind of ethos as a drummer, but then he's also, really tricky, as you're going to hear on this album. There's so many original things that, I mean, I'm a drummer too. I wouldn't think of doing. And so when you have guys that have dexterity and power, it's like, sky's the limit in terms of what we can do as musicians on the tracks, but then put it under that pop rock category and, make it blend.
But it also gives you guys a wider scope of what you can do as the band goes on, like you're saying. So that's really interesting as well. I definitely found, sort of to Trev's point, that originality was very much prominent, especially on the latest single, Something Wrong, because oftentimes I'll listen to a group, especially a group that's maybe putting out their debut, and you'll say, okay, this sounds like Ramones. This sounds like a little bit of early Maiden. With you guys, it really just sounds like The Effect. And I'm not just saying it, because we're here. I mean, genuinely, I was impressed to that. So maybe, continuing on that thought, is that a very conscious thing for you guys? Like, yes, we're of course influenced by many people, but we're not here to sort of fully bring that sound. We're here to make our own sound.
Well, I want to smooch you now, Cassius. That was very cool of you to say, man. I think as we were just all saying about how we do, we're all fans of each other, of what we do. So it's like, to be able to hear everyone's unique, because everyone's so unique in this band, that like you get to blend that as like some rock and roll gumbo, and then it just kind of forms into this sound. And it's just been consistent through the whole album. And we kind of all looked at each other at a point where like, this is us, this is, look at, like, and Emmett and I have had the conversation. Sometimes you're in the process of making the song and the record, and you don't really get to take in what you're doing. You're just building. You're in this zone. And then when you hear the mix back, you take some time. You get to listen to it. Like, whoa, that's us. We did that. Like, where did that come from? You know, we've had that moment like along the whole recording process. But you finished what I'm saying. But yeah.
For sure. It's right. Every tune has been like that. I remember distinctly Unwanted. It was the first one. And it was after getting vocals done, kind of all the kind of production therein was kind of complete. It was almost like an out of body experience listening to the thing, because, you know, a lot of songwriters and performers, they feel like that's theirs, that's their baby, you know, that came from them.
Yeah.
And I understand. And I mean, we feel that way, but there are these moments where you go, what just happened? Like it goes by so quickly. And like, again, we're talking about this serendipitous kind of, you know, alignment going on, I guess, but it was kind of wild. It was sort of like, I don't remember. We just, you know, spent a day and a half on the vocals. I got to drive back to Vegas now, but it's like, what happened? We were just kind of listening to this thing. And, it's kind of remarkable. So it feels like the music also has its own character, has its own personality, it has its own life that's kind of independent of the people that are so-called creating it. You know, it's kind of
for sure. Well, that's what John Lennon said as well, right? That it's sort of being a musician is like being a conduit to a degree of, you know, you're just an antenna for a lot of ideas. And I actually saw that was hanging in Michael Jackson's studio. And I saw that in the Thriller documentary. Of course, Trev, which your father, of course, was featured in many times. I don't know if you guys got to see that documentary at all.
I did. And what was really cool about that is I never saw the video of them in the studio making Thriller and Dad tracking guitars. I saw that classic photo of that day with Paul McCartney, Michael Jackson, Quincy, and Dad and Jeff Porcaro and George Martin. Like you look at that photo, you're like, oh my gosh. And then to actually see video footage of that was super cool. But I know what you're talking about, Cassie, is that part where Michael doesn't take credit for any of his songs. He says that he channels it, that he's, you know, and I've always considered myself, my nickname on the What's So Not tour was the Vessel, because I'd always say, hey, I just play stuff and I don't know where it's coming from. And I don't even know how I learned how to play guitar. I never was taught. People think my dad taught me. He never did. So I just was able to play and able to write. And, you know, when Emmett or us as a band are writing, it's coming from somewhere. It's not just coming from the brain. I mean, like, you know, just to say, oh, it's me, I take credit for it. Emmett takes credit for it.
Yeah.
We're very spiritual guys, Emmett and I as well. So we definitely are in that zone of like, where did that come from? And us not taking credit for what we're doing in that moment. You know?
Totally. And like you were saying, Cassius, about the sound, briefly, it's almost like all of us have kind of cut our teeth quite a bit. And so part of when you asked that reminded me, like, you know, being able to get to this point, or, you know, trying to think of like what kind of sound you want as a band or how you want to come off. In a way, a lot of those things I think are taken care of kind of subconsciously, because we've all put a lot of time into our various crafts, so that when we just get together, once the song's there, we apply that, you know, those musical tastes, and out it comes, essentially.
Emmett, what was your sort of musical background more so before this? I know we touched a little bit on obviously you had YouTube, you put up, you know, a very successful cover, but what was sort of your other experience before?
Yeah, it's interesting you should ask, because I thought I would never do covers online, because I had always been an original music guy. I started very young with music in general. I started violin at 3, piano at 7, drums at 5. That was like my first rock instrument, guitar at 11. And I grew up in a super musical household. I was listening to everything and anything in between Mozart, Ravi Shankar, Gypsy Kings, the Beatles, you know, Led Zeppelin. And I'm kind of like a psychedelic rock guy, essentially. It's the kind of stuff I really, really love. But my influences musically, because of my parents, were so wide, and I love everything. You know, I think as long as it's good, I'll listen to it. So I had actually been involved in the music industry in Philly for quite some time. When I was just coming into my late teens, I was a session guitar player and a drummer, and I was doing my own original stuff. And probably when I was around 20, that I found the hustle of the club scene kind of like going nowhere fast. ended up traveling. I went to Spain. I studied flamenco there. I can sing flamenco.
Oh, wow.
I studied the guitar as well. But I ended up, when I went back to the States, I moved to LA, chased the film industry for like 10 odd years. So what does that say about me as an actor? But also Vancouver for about 5 years. I did some, BTV stuff, but basically I was out of the music industry for a while.
Yeah.
And about a year before I connected with Trev, I had a gig here in Vegas on Fremont in a cover band, which again, I thought, I'd studied other, artists my whole life. That's how you learn. But I never thought I would actually, I was never in a cover band essentially beforehand. And it was that same time I was, doing YouTube and just trying to get out there to say like, hey, I can, I like to sing Led Zeppelin. I like to sing like Motown or what have you. So that's kind of past 36 years. Here we go.
Man. So, I mean, would you say that there's a decent amount of opportunity, and you guys could both maybe speak to this, for, artists in that sort of Fremont scene? Because, I mean, it seems to me that, if you're trying to get something going or get discovered, that seems like a phenomenal place.
For sure. I mean, the cool thing, I really, really love the fact that every night you play there, for the most part, there's a crowd for you.
Right.
And you have to play a wide range of like top 40 stuff generally, I think, to get audiences to be interested, to want to come back. Makes sense. That's why they're there. But I know they're young bands. Like there's the Garage Boys, are a really super fun band. And I discovered them because of the Fremont scene, because they were starting to play Fremont more and more and kept getting called back. And there's so many people there. It's also the age range is really conducive for that. It's very wide. Like I think a lot of rock shows tend to be now, like the Kiss farewell tour. It's like it'd be, it wasn't just the people that grew up on the music, it was also the generations under them.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, having just seen that tour, I'm sure you guys probably stopped into the farewell tour at some point, or I don't know. I guess I can't assume. No,
man. I have a great story though, man. When I going to a Kiss show, is my pop and I went to it was years back, probably like, I don't know, maybe like 8 years or something. And we went to the Staples Center, which is the crypto arena now. But my pop, he brought a joint with him, Sorry. Hey, it's LA, man.
That's right.
He's good now. But back then, no. So he busted out a joint, and we're smoking outside the venue, and some guy with a 9-year-old kid recognized my dad. So I'm smoking a joint while this 9-year-old walks up with his dad, and the guy's like, "Oh, Steve," and I'm like, "Oh," so I walk away and I pretend like it's a cigarette,
Right.
And my dad comes back, and like by the time he was done, like taking a photo with the guy and talking a little bit, I've like smoked half this joint, and I'm usually a one-hit wonder,
Oh, okay,
so
yeah.
So Pop comes back, he's like, "Oh my gosh," he's like, "Oh my gosh, man. You smoked half of that?" And I'm like, "Dude, I was just trying, I don't know what to do." And he says, "That's some nuclear weed, man." And then all of a sudden I get paranoid. And then the tour manager comes out and says, Gene and Paul will see you now. I'm like, "What?"
Oh, and hell no.
they bring us back, dude. And they bring us to the room with Gene and Paul in the full get up, dude.
The whole makeup, everything.
The whole makeup, everything is like 20 minutes before the show. And Gene Simmons says, "Little Luke, come here," like that. And I go like, I'm close, man. I'm looking up. They're in the
it's like 10 feet tall, man. Of course, right?
I am. Oh my gosh! And I'm seeing everything up close, and I'm just like blazing, dude. And I'm trying to keep my composure. And I don't know how I did, but or Dad too. He was pretty stoned as well. And we walk out of that dressing room, the curtain closes, and my pop and I hit the floor laughing of how we even got through it, because we were just so, out of our minds. But and then watch shows. Then you're watching a Kiss show, like fireworks and the whole
Hell
thing,
yeah.
and
then you're
blood
into
spitting.
it.
So,
but especially with those guys, being so anti everything, right? Like so anti drug, anti alcohol. It's like you really want to keep it straight around those guys. It's
that was in the back of my mind too, man. So the paranoia was in full swing. And I was just trying to keep my composure, but it just that'll always be a memory, man, of like just
That's so
seeing
funny.
them both, like, the fishnet thing, like the whole thing of
Just
it's just like
towering.
you're just seeing everything so crystal clear, man. And like, oh gosh, it was a classic moment. I can't
That
believe
is
I just
such a
shared that, but
classic.
it's yeah, whatever, man.
That's
Right?
one for the books, man. That's an absolute classic. And obviously, Trev, it sounds like you have a great relationship, with your dad. It's interesting that you spoke sort of on some of the misconception. Like a lot of people think he taught you guitar. That's not the case. I wonder, how does that sort of element, if at all, affect sort of your solo work and your groups, like maybe the effect. Of course, Nick Collins in the group as well,
Mhm.
son of Phil Collins. So like, is that something that affects the group at all, or is it not something that's even relevant?
Um, it's a double-edged sword, man. You can get some doors open, or some, maybe, like, some ears or attention that maybe from the name, but the bummer part about it all is you're instantly compared,
Right.
instead of like just being an artist that comes out, or a guitar player or whatever, or singer. It's like, people just be looking at you as your own identity. But then when you come from a family, it's like your identity is connected to this larger than life identity. And I used to be bothered by it, but I realized that, my dad's story is my dad's story, my story is my story,
Yeah.
Nick's story is his story. We all have our own stories. So, I'm just gonna, when I let that go, I started writing better and playing better, because
Hmm.
with that, devil on your shoulder whispering in your ear, or focusing on trolls on the internet, it can really get to you. But now it just doesn't affect me. And I really just, I don't even I really don't think about it, and other than you asking the question. But
Yeah.
that's why, though, where did that come from? Because I don't believe it's just, oh, your dad is who your dad is, so you're great. Because I think we all know, we've seen a lot of kids of people doing what they're trying to do it, and it just, they're not, it's just kind of like, ooh, they must have skipped that generation, and I'm
Right.
not, and but I'm just saying, I'm not trying to, like, and I'm not naming names, but I'm just saying, like, I don't believe in that. I believe that we're all chosen. Everyone on this planet is chosen to do something, and everyone's given a natural ability to bring to this life and bring to this world, to help people. For us as musicians and writers, it's like, it's that escape. It's that, can we help people forget about their shitty day, shitty job, shitty
Yeah.
relationship, whatever, in that moment, um, and make them feel some happiness, for even if it's for 2 seconds. That's something. And connecting with strangers that you don't know all around the world, and at shows, you have this bond. You have this bond when you look into a crowd, and you might not know them, but you just have the spiritual bond, and those people will remember that moment. You remember that moment. So, yeah, man. I mean, anyone that's just, that really didn't come into play in this band. It's cool, obviously, for people to hear, oh man, that's really cool. Your dad's it, Nick's dad's Phil Collins, your dad's Steve. But like, we are showing on our side that, despite that, forget about that we are just a killer band that work hard. We work at our craft. We put the hours in, we put the years in, to have our own voice,
Yeah. Yeah, if you
Yeah.
think about, also, like, Trev has produced so much, like a lot of what he's done in the industry is on his own beats. Like, people, it's funny, like, we're working on something, there's an email that pops up. I'm like, oh wow, you worked with so and so. And that's because people like Trev, but also it's because he produces really well and he has his own voice in that realm. And that brings a lot of the music to the table on the effect, because Trev is the producer as well as a guitar player and the co-writer and all this, that. So that, there's to be able to produce says a lot about what you can handle musically. And I think that speaks for itself.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I always love, being able to hear it straight from the horse's mouth about the misconceptions. Because, recently I saw you guys mentioned, excuse me, you guys mentioned Evan Stanley. The other day he did an interview where somebody was saying, well, you're going to, of course, take over for your dad, right? And Kiss. And he said, no, I have no desire to take over for my dad. I'm doing my own thing. Why would I want to do that? Right. So people form these strange ideas, I think, like you're saying, but it doesn't necessarily matter or even matter at all what people's ideas are, because you guys are out here kicking ass and taking names. So it's awesome to see.
And that is part of what's a
Hey,
cool narrative. It's like people want to believe because these bands were so massive, right? And they still are rocking audiences still, right? These
Yeah,
guys, just kicking ass for so long. And people want to believe like a kind of like almost like a royalty, like a nobility of like a line of succession. And so when it does happen, people are fired up. Like that is such a great narrative that the world wants to invest in. And like when Trev says, I believe exactly what he said. When you are who you are and you've got the goods and you have a voice musically, but you happen to come from a guy who's also legendary, I think it's exciting and it's something worth celebrating.
yeah,
yeah,
that's true.
and just like Wolfie too, like he goes out and does that tribute to his pop at the Taylor Hawkins thing, and absolutely face melted Van Halen, and but Wolfie, that was a one off, I mean, he's focused on his own voice too. You can't just be. It's so funny because people are going to be upset if you do it, and people are going to be upset if you don't do
Of
it.
course, you can
Like
never
they're going to
please
be mad at
anybody.
like they're going to be like, hey man, you're just trying to be your dad, but not as good, and whatever. And then the other people are mad saying, oh, you're just going to do your band and you're not going to do you're not going to put Van Halen together again for Wolfie, or for me, if my down the line it's like I'm going to what be Toto, it's like no,
It
it
makes no
just
sense.
it doesn't make sense. And that's their work, that's their art, that's who they were as an artist and their identity. And we're fans of all of that. We're huge
Sure.
support systems of all of that. But vice versa, their
Mhm.
support system on our end, they're fans of what we do. So it's like that's the cool part too, is like people that you admired growing up are now becoming fans of what you do, and it's a huge support system. So it's like if you're getting that love, it's like, why are you just going to go and do, you know, that?
A Toto tribute, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely not the idea, and that's super respectable too. 100%. Obviously, you guys mentioned that you recorded. You said the entire record is recorded now.
Mhm.
Awesome. So when can people sort of expect maybe a release, and how many tracks are we talking here that are in the vault?
We have 10 songs done, finished, ready for mastering, and we're super pumped. Every song we're really proud of. And, I think we're at this point right now that we really got to figure out the family that we're building, the people around us, the partners, because we want this album to have a real chance at being heard. And, if it's us really kind of going back, to be honest, to we've discussed as a band is really focusing on Unwanted, to really try to build that song up more, try to get more action on it, maybe get some radio on it, and really see how it goes, because we had the Power Hour thing, and you could finish talking about this, but we have seen that once we do have an audience, people do connect to what we're doing. So we just need that on a broader level. But finish.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely unwanted. That's kind of, our story and it's still an evolving story, kind of really centralized around that one song. And big shout out to Matt Pinfield for
Yes.
his support. He introduced us to the crowd at our first gig, number one. Then he played us on KLOS later that night. We were on his show on the Power Hour. We got as a new, band that you could vote for. We started climbing up every week. It was just like, oh, I guess see you number 7. Well, we'll see. There's like Rolling Stones and Guns N' Roses and all these big acts. And then eventually we hit number 1 right before the end of the new year. And so
Amazing.
yeah, very amazing. And every time he was talking about the band, he was super pumped up. And so he's just, we got to send him love for that, just to make us look so good.
He's the best, man. Matt's the best. It's just literally at dinner with him 2 nights ago. He is such a champion for the band and really believes in the band and is just one of those. And he's still a tastemaker in rock. And, you know, he really is just a huge support for us and loves everyone individually, respects everyone individually. And, we're very lucky to have this amazing support system, as a band. And, so now it's just basically figuring out, you know, who's going to be the right label partner for us. I mean, we've been releasing through Vidya and they have a label situation too. We just need to have a conversation there or, you know, figure out if there's a rock label we're going to go. I mean, we don't know. We're going to kind of let the universe play out what our step is, but we don't want to kind of, because unless there's a plan, as you know, man, it's like, unless there's something that we are for sure, okay, here's the plan for this next song, you know, it's really tough to just release every 6 weeks. And the next thing you know, your album, then you're kind of still, it's like, we do need that we need that machine to kind of get it right up there because the album is that good and it deserves that shot.
Well, I definitely think you guys are on the right track now. I mean, you know, there's a lot of, you know, awareness, you know, being made about the record and the project even at this point. So I'm definitely excited to see it, man. We're going to be listening. Of course, everybody watching this can go and connect with The Effect. We got the links to their latest video and all their socials down below in the description. And gentlemen, thank you so much for making the time, man. This has been an awesome conversation.
Oh, Cassius, you're the man, dude. Thanks for having us.